Good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. Thanks for getting on the stream tonight to another episode of Let's Talk About It. I am your host, Charles Chambers of Let's Talk About It Now. Shout out to all my new subscribers to Let's Talk About It Now. I appreciate your support. Little housekeeping. Before we get squarely into the stream, as you come into the building, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button so that we can keep this content going. And if you should so desire, support the stream with the Cashapp, $, capital C, capital G, 4003. That's $, capital C, capital G, 4033. Again, I thank you for your support. I will tell you, this is not a stream that I take pleasure in doing tonight. And before we begin, shout out to all my moderators. If you can hear me clearly in the stream, put a 1 in the chat box. If you can hear me clearly, put a 1 in the chat box. If you can hear me, put a 1 in the chat box. To my moderators, if you can hear me clearly, put a 1 in the chat box. Awesome. Shout out to Abdul. Shout out to Gail. Thank you for getting on the stream tonight. Shout out to Dwayne. Thank you for getting on the stream tonight. We're going to get right into the stream tonight. This is for a young lady who unfortunately lost her life due to this extremely dangerous storm that took place in Buffalo, New York. They considered this one of the worst blizzards, worst storms, winter storms that they've seen in a very, very long time. And many individuals unfortunately lost their lives. We're talking about high as 28, and from what I hear, it's upwards of about 32, and they expect there'll be more as we have this warming effect that's taking place. And as you all know, it's been warmer during the winter, than normal around this time of year. We've had some warm temperatures. I mean, just today it was in the 50s, mid 50s. So at least from where I am. And these are abnormal temperatures for this time of year. As a result, when you have snowstorms, the likes of which hit Buffalo, with these kind of warming conditions, now you're looking at another problem. You're looking at flooding conditions that can take place. They expect that as this warming condition takes hold of that area of Buffalo, Erie County, that they'll find more bodies underneath that snow that were trapped. And this is unfortunate. This is sad. And that's why, again, I take no pleasure in this particular stream, because this is sad. This is, I am a father of children that are around the same age as Mrs. Anndel Taylor. She's 22 years of age. My sons are a little older than she is, but not much, only by a year or two, So, and irregardless, any of us that are parents, we understand the devastation, the painful devastation of losing a child. So, this goes without saying that this is a tragic story to report. I'm sure many of you have already heard about it, and my heart goes out, my condolence goes out to all of the families in Buffalo, Erie County in particular, that have lost loved ones and as we speak are still looking for your loved ones that have not yet been discovered. My heart goes out to you, and my condolences goes out to you for those of you that have already discovered that your loved ones have unfortunately lost their lives because of this storm. This is a very devastating storm. Very devastating storm. We're talking about upwards of 5 to 6 feet with the snowdrift and winds that were blowing. What makes this story with Anndel so much more devastating and sad is the fact that it was preventable. It was preventable. So you say, well, Charles, how was it preventable? Well, it was preventable in many different ways. A lot of us don't understand that in a snowstorm like this, of this magnitude, for those of us that have been in snowstorms like this, I've been in blizzards that looked like this. I don't know if the footage was the same in terms of the depth of snow, but I will tell you this. I've been in snowstorms that were so bad where you had literally about a foot of visual distance between your visibility. You couldn't see much in front of you. And I do know this, that in a snowstorm of this magnitude, if you're in a vehicle and you have the potential of being stuck, I will tell you, I know you don't want to get out your car, especially if there's high winds and deep snow. You don't want to get out of your car, especially if the car is warm and you got the heat on. You really don't want to get out the car because you have a sense of security and comfort by staying in the car. But here's where the problem lies. As that wind blows and you create what I call a snowdrift, where it blows the snow up, it begins to cover the back of your exhaust pipe. You may not realize it's covering the back of your exhaust pipe, because you're inside the car and you're warm and the heat is on. But here's the problem. As it covers the exhaust pipe, the exhaust has nowhere to go. So what happens? It goes back in reverse. It goes back into the car, and then it begins to come out through the air vents. Carbon monoxide is odorless, so you can't smell it. All you know is you feel yourself becoming sleepy, tired. And with the heat on and you feeling yourself getting sleepy, the instinct is, I'll just relax and wait it out. And you go to sleep. The sad reality is that if carbon monoxide is entering into your car and it's odorless and you find yourself sleepy, the sad reality is that you may not wake up. This is the reality, and this is the tragic outcome of what took place with Mrs. Anndel Taylor, a young lady who was only 22 years of age, who found herself only 6 miles away from her home. She wasn't really from Buffalo at that particular time. She was born in Buffalo, yes, but she had relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina. She only went back to Buffalo to take care of her ailing father. She had just got off of work. And I'll tell you, folks, I know how many times have you been in a storm or hurricane warnings or any kind of real storm potential tragedy, any potential bad storm, I should say, where you were warned, we were warned by local authorities, by the news, to do what? Stay in place. Don't move, don't drive, stay off the roads, right? And many of us have looked out the window and looked at the storm and looked at the conditions and said, I think I can make it. Why do I say that? Because I'm guilty of that. I've done that. Because you always think you can make it. If I just drive slow, if I just take my time, if I just pay attention to what's going on around me and just move cautiously I can get home. Because who doesn't want to be in the safety of their own home during a snowstorm? You don't want to be at your job. Who wants that? You want to be home in the comfort of your own home around family members that care for you, right? So we all try to strive to get home. That's the key. But it's not always the best decision. It's not always the best decision. And anybody that knows, and I would say those that know, the potential that your car literally will become a casket. It literally will become a tomb for you if you're in a very bad snowstorm and there's high winds blowing up against that exhaust pipe. It can block the exhaust pipe. And once it does, you've basically sealed your fate if you don't get out that car. So what would have been the best advice? The best advice to anyone in a situation like that, and I believe what would have been the best advice to Anndel would have been to turn the car off, put on your coat, bundle up as best you can, or get out of the car, look around, be observant of your surroundings, any lights, any apartments, any homes, anywhere, knock on doors. It would have been safer for her to trek through the snow to get to someone's house or someone's resident to get help, or perhaps shelter until the morning came, as opposed to staying in the car in the comfort of the heat that was coming through her car, not realizing that her exhaust system was blocked and that carbon monoxide was coming into the car through the air vents, thereby poisoning her slowly, putting her to sleep. And unfortunately, she lost her life as a result, 22 years of age. I tell you, I would hope that this stream would give us some insight. And before I go forward, for those of us that are still here, I want to say Happy New Year to you. Pay attention to the fact that we made it to one more year. As we can see, like Miss Anndel, she did not make it to see the new year come in. And so many others did not make it. So many others that had nothing to do with this storm. There's just so many others that simply did not survive to see the new year. So those of us that did, look around your family. Embrace the blessing that you have to see your family as this new year has now come in. All right? And understand that when you get into any emergency situation, it's very important to know what to do. The little things, the very little things. There was a series of text messaging that Mrs. Anndel and her family and her sister, they went back and forth for hours with text messaging. And in that text messaging, they were just simply talking. And you can, by looking at the text messages, she wasn't really afraid. She didn't seem to be afraid in her text messages. She was concerned, but she didn't seem to be hopeless about the situation. So the final statement was, I'm a little sleepy. I think I'll just go to sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I'll walk to see if I can get some help. And unfortunately, that morning and that walk never came to reality for Miss Anndel. They found her deceased on December 25th. So that adds another layer of pain as a result. Because now we're looking at the holiday where all the family should be together. And yet the reality sets in that they have to plan a funeral on Christmas morning. So this is a very disturbing sad story. And what I also found disturbing for me in watching this story is that all of the individuals she spoke to on the phone, these were the women of her family. There were no men that intervened in the conversation to give her the necessary advice that she could have used, that perhaps could have saved her life. She was left alone, a 22-year-old young woman in the middle of a blizzard with no male guidance. Well, you say, well, what does that have to do with it, Charles? I'll tell you. When we find our women uncovered, when we find our women unprotected, when we find our women without the necessary advice needed from the agency of a man who's worked in the elements for years, perhaps, who may have the necessary advice to give her, especially a young lady like herself, who's only 22 years of age, it could have perhaps been the difference between saving her life or not having that advice, and as a result, losing her life. This is all I'm saying. And I think it's important that we take note of that, because now going forward, she was supposed to be 23 years of age next month. She was due to turn 23 years old next month in February. And February will come and she will not be here to celebrate her 23rd birthday. This is my daughter. This is your daughter. This is your niece. This is my niece. This is my granddaughter. This perhaps is your granddaughter. I've said in other streams that a problem or a situation for one is a problem and a situation for all of us. And I believe until we become ultra sensitive to every situation, every case, every tragedy, no matter what it is, regardless of whether we know the individual or not, I think it has to get personal with us, that even if we can do nothing to change the circumstance or the situation or the outcome, that we at least speak on it, talk about it. Because I'll tell you, when you find that others are concerned about situations, setbacks, bad outcomes, hurts, pains, grief that we experience, when we find that others are equally as concerned as we are, being the person that is personally affected, it does something for that individual. It truly does. It does something for that individual simply to know that someone else cares. Someone else cares enough to speak about it, to talk about it. And I think in a lot of situations, that's where we drop the ball. But I want to get into this particular case. And again, shout out to all of you that got on the stream. I want to give a special shout out to a content creator. Pardon me 1 second. Give me 1 second, folks. I want to get into a live stream that was shared by Miss Queen News. Shout out to Miss Queen News, fair use. I'm going to encourage you guys to get over to her channel. It's Miss QS News, Miss Queen News on YouTube. Support her channel by subscribing and sharing. And this is a particular stream she shared, which I found very informative. So let's get right into it right now. Again, I thank you for getting on the stream this evening.
storm. Just trying to make it home. Just trying to make it home. Just trying to make it home.
Shout out to
Buffalo woman dies
Miss
in her
Q's
car after
news.
sending chilling video of being stranded in a blizzard for 18 hours. Anndel Taylor, who was caught in the path of a historic winter storm and was stranded in her car, has died in Buffalo, New York. The 22-year-old woman died over the weekend as a result of her car becoming stuck in the snow on the way home from work on Friday, December 23rd. Dozens of Americans have died as a winter storm brought frigid temperatures and paralyzing snowfall across the United States. Many deaths reported from Erie County. Taylor sent her family a farewell video from inside her car the day before she was discovered dead from what her mother believes was carbon monoxide poisoning rather than hypothermia. No cause of death has been disclosed as of yet. It showed her car trapped in the snow soon after midnight on Saturday, December 24th, as a terrifying wind howled outside. Her friends and relatives urged others in the neighborhood to help after seeing the video, and she was eventually located sometime after Saturday afternoon. Taylor, who lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, after being born and raised in Buffalo, New York, returned back to New York earlier this year to care for her father. The mother and sister of the 22-year-old discussed the agony of getting the gruesome footage and the subsequent waiting. Taylor informed her family members that she had been stranded in the snow while returning from work and it was pouring heavily in a group chat for the family. In the 16-second clip, Taylor can be seen sliding down the window that is coated in snow to reveal a wintry scene. Taylor's relatives told local Charlotte media that they were unaware of the severity of the situation in Western New York. I don't know if any of us really knew how serious it was. We didn't see the news. We didn't really know what was going on in Buffalo, said Sister Shaniqua Brown. Tomisha Brown, Taylor's other sister, claimed that while some individuals had attempted to save her and her car, their efforts had been ineffective. I feel like everybody that tried to get her got stuck, Tamisha stated. Fire department, police, everybody got stuck. Why didn't they have chains on their tires? This is a state that is known for snow, Tamisha stated. Taylor's death has not yet been given a cause, and local law enforcement officials have not yet confirmed that she was one of the storm's casualties. The historic once-in-a-lifetime storm has resulted in the deaths of 57 people nationwide in weather-related incidents. In Erie County, where Buffalo is located, 27 deaths have been officially reported as of Monday night.
South Buffalo, New York, one of the hardest hit places in the country.
Wow.
The storm dumping more than 4 feet of snow
Wow.
in that Buffalo area. 28 people dying over the weekend during this blizzard in Western New York alone. That includes a young woman who grew up in Charlotte.
It's like I want to wake up from this dream. You know, she was just so sweet.
And
Wow.
around 12, she texted us the last video saying that the snow was basically by her stomach. She was in a position where she was comfortable inside the car when she had on scrubs.
Now, folks, listen to this. She was told, she reported to her family that the snow was up to her stomach. Now, she wasn't outside in the elements, but she could see where the snow was getting high enough to where her sitting in the car made it appear as if it was up to her stomach. She was given an indication that the snow was at least halfway to the level of her car. Sadly, no one said enough to tell her what to do at this point. Because think about it. If the snow is halfway to the level of your car, it's safe to say that it's probably covering your exhaust pipe at that point, right? I'm pretty sure many of you would agree. It's probably covering your exhaust pipe at that point. So there's really no way for the exhaust to go out. The only way the exhaust can go is in. And then it begins to come out through your air vents in your car, where your windows are closed because of course you're not going to have your windows open if it's snowing and it's blizzard like conditions. You're going to have your windows up. You're going to have your heat on. You're going to have your windows up. So there's literally no air from the outside getting inside. But what is getting inside? That's carbon monoxide. Very sad story. Very sad. Very sad.
She didn't have a coat on, so she didn't freeze.
Loved ones described Anndel as a protector and a caregiver who moved to New York to go to school and help her dad.
She went all the way to Buffalo to take care of her father, and no one was there as far as the rescue people to help her.
Her family in New York say they did all they could to get to Anndel, but couldn't make it through all of the snow. Her body was found by a stranger Saturday night.
She was brave. She was loyal. She was always there.
Very sad.
And if sister had it, we could always depend on her.
That's really hard for us. Like, really hard. She was the youngest one, but she had the oldest soul.
Anndel's family say the same stranger who found her had a truck, drove them to her so that they could bring Anndel to the hospital. Anndel would have been 23 next month.
Very sad. This is the last video footage that she was sending to her family. Also the last communication they had with Anndel. She's showing her family the conditions that she was in. Very sad.
What people understand, there's a lot of roads that are completely blocked right now that have no access whatsoever. And people are trying to drive on these roads or trying to get into these neighborhoods, and they can't. Please, please, you heard the mayor beg, I'm begging. Stay home.
Very sad. And I will say, going forward, if we find ourselves in situations like this, where we are being advised by professionals to stay home or to stay indoors, we probably should. Well, we should listen. We should listen. I can recall many years ago, my wife and I and two of my sons, we were going to the movies. And we heard on the news that a hurricane was coming. The hurricane was late arriving, according to the news report, and it appeared calm. It appeared very, very calm outside. The winds were not high yet. There was no rain. There was nothing. It looked like it wasn't going to come. See, but not listening to the news report found me and my wife and my two sons at the train station because we was going to catch a train. I forget exactly where we were going, but we found ourselves physically unprepared for a hurricane and found ourselves at a train station with a hurricane fastly approaching us while we were at the train station, to the point we could not go back home. We had to find shelter somewhere around that train station just to protect ourselves from the winds and from the flying debris that was in the air. You can only imagine how helpless I felt, being that I'm the protector for my family. I should have made a better judgment, but I will tell you something. I was young at that time. That's not an excuse. I should have made a better judgment because I had a responsibility to my family. As a result, misjudgment put not just myself in danger, but it put my entire family in danger. And by the grace of God, we still walked out of that situation unscathed. But that's a lesson to be learned, because when you find yourself being told that a storm is coming and you're at work, stay there. I know you want to go home. I know you're tired and you want to feel the warmth of your own bed. I get it. But sometimes you have to inconvenience yourself to save your own life. So this is what I would hope this stream would leave my listeners with, is that use your head. Use your head. Sometimes we have to inconvenience ourselves. I wish that Anndel had inconvenienced herself. I wish she had, because she didn't have to lose her life. It was a preventable tragedy. It wasn't an accident by happenstance. It was a simple misjudgment that caused her to lose her life. Was it her family's fault? Not at all. Whose fault was it? Sadly, it was Anndel's fault for not having better judgment. She chose to do what so many of us have done. We've survived bad storms, bad situations where we should have stayed put, but we chose to move anyway. And by the grace of God, we survived it. But many have made the same kind of decision and have not have been so fortunate. Many have made the same decision and have not been as fortunate. They've lost their lives. We hear about it all the time. I expect that as this warming condition continues, with the temperature being very, very high, not normal for this time of year. I believe that as the melting of the snow takes place in Buffalo, they'll find more and more bodies, unfortunately. But see, here's another problem I want to address. A lot of cities, they're very eager to put their money into different things. I'm not going to say Buffalo is at fault, but I will say this. They were ill prepared for this kind of storm. And I understand, because it was the biggest storm that they've ever seen in a very, very, very long time. We're talking about snow upwards of 5 and 6 feet, and even higher with the snowdrift and the winds. It was an incredible storm in Buffalo. They were not prepared. They were very ill prepared for this storm. But I hope a lesson is taken with the city of Buffalo in going forward as to where to appropriate their funds. Because it can't be overlooked that Buffalo, the officials, they approved $850 million in public subsidies to help the Buffalo Bills build a new football stadium. And that same deal included $600 million from the state of New York, $250 million just from the county in which the storm took place, Erie County. What kind of equipment could have been purchased had they appropriated those funds to emergency equipment? I mean, I'm just saying, it's just food for thought. What kind of equipment, what kind of advanced equipment could have been purchased had they appropriated those kind of funds to deal with potential storms like this? Because it's not that Buffalo has not seen a storm like this before. It's just that they have not seen a storm like this in a very, very, very long time. Why not make sure you're prepared in the event that a storm like this comes up and shows its face again, to protect your citizens? To protect your citizens. Outside of that, I would say that we use better judgment. We look at storms that happened all over the world, in Florida, floods, New Orleans. Citizens in these cities were warned by local government to evacuate. How many stories have you heard where the citizens of those cities decided, I think I'm going to just stick it out. Well, sticking it out caused a lot of deaths. It caused a lot of loss of life. I just think we need to use better judgment when it comes to these kind of tragedies, um, these kind of events that we have no control over, these kind of natural events that we have no control over. I simply think we need to use better judgment, and perhaps we can save many, many lives as a result, and we can have our loved ones come home to us. Um, with that being said, I thank all of you for getting on the stream tonight. I hope that this stream went across clearly enough for you to understand it and see it. Again, I salute to all my new subscribers for Let's Talk About It Now. If you have not yet hit the subscribe button, please do so. Hit the subscribe button and share button so we can continue getting content out. If you should so feel, support the stream with the Cashapp, $, capital C, capital G, 4033. And I absolutely appreciate your support. And I will be doing my gut-wrenching best to continue giving you quality content. And with that being said, I am your host, Charles Chambers of Let's Talk About It Now. With that being said, have a fantastic evening. Have a fantastic day tomorrow. And Happy New Year to all. God bless. Have a good night, folks.